The riverbed saga. Ongoing, never-ending nightmare of past mistakes.
Have we reached the sundress and sandal stage?
This is the dry riverbed, and despite the way it looks right now, this is actually the soggiest part of our property. The whole acre is made of clay and is wet most of the time, but when the spring rains come, the water just pools here and it takes forever to drain away. We've dug trenches, we've built bridges, I even planted this beautiful peach leaf willow here in order to soak up some of the water, but still every spring it just pools here and it's impossible to mow or maintain. So despite all the projects on our list this spring, I decided this bed had to be dealt with because it had become an unsightly mess. But it's a mess because of a mistake that I made. A couple years ago, I thought the solution to the wet was to build a trench topped with river rock. The idea being that the trench would collect all the water and direct it down and away from the rest of the lawn. The pictures of this idea look so great on Pinterest, but it never worked properly because the water just drained too slowly. To build it though, we used a lot of plastic landscape mat, thinking it would prevent any of the weeds from coming up through our lovely new river rock, but it totally didn't. Instead, the weeds happily drove themselves right through it, and I believe the mat actually prevented the water from draining properly. Then last November, one of the dead ash trees that are just on the outside of our property came crashing down onto the bed. It hit but didn't damage our garden bike, but it did take out a few other plants. It was a huge job to clear out all the debris, but the one good thing that came out of it was that by clearing out all the bushes next to the bed, we discovered about 10 extra feet of our property and it opened up the whole area to more light. But the mess of the weeds had to be dealt with, and I really hated the fact that the useless landscape mat was rotting away underground. So over 4 grueling days this spring, I ripped it all up. It was a horrible, back-breaking job, but totally the right thing to do as I discovered the birch tree roots had grown through and on top of the mat. I had to get right in there and cut them out. Now the roots have full access to the ground below. I wish I could play you the music I was listening to stay motivated during this job because it was way cooler than this free stuff. But what can you do? Once all the mat was removed, I still had to weed and tidy up the planting areas. My goal is to keep the front area somewhat curated, but to let the back area, including the river rock trench, become more naturalized. Not with tall grasses, we still have ticks to contend with, but hopefully some sort of ground cover. It's super hard to find any plants that can tolerate soaking wet conditions in the spring and then hard, dry clay in the summer. But there are a few plants that have survived, so they get to stay. That includes hostas, camassia, lilies, spirea, and the astilbes. My options for native plants in this location are slim, but there are a few champions. What I have found so far is wild ginger, Christmas and royal ferns, blue cohosh, and a gray sedge. For shrubs, I have lots of black chokeberry, a winterberry, and a buttonbush. What I have started from seed that I still need to plant out are a bunch of swamp, milkweed, and possibly some lobelia in the sunnier section to the north. However, now that the trench area has opened up in the south part of the bed, I may be able to include a few more plants that prefer sun. So here we are, kind of tidy in the front, kind of messy in the back, but definitely more organic now that the plastic mat is gone. This bed will never look like a Pinterest post, but I'm okay with that, because I'm learning that gardening is really a journey, and it's never finished. Nature is constantly evolving and changing, so I can either fight it, or I can work with it. And I'm done trying to make this area into something it's not. I'm not quite ready to let it go completely wild, but I'm not going to stress if a few weeds come up here and there. And besides, the more I actually learn to recognize native plants, I realize that a lot of these weeds are actually quite lovely. Nonetheless, I hope the next time I have to come and maintain this bed, it won't be so frickin' hard.